the old magic wand question, Steve. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one misconception about AI and custom software, what would it be?
It would be that AI thinks. AI doesn't think, it predicts. AI is really a large math algorithm that is creating weights on what should happen next, literally what word should happen after the previous word, what sentence should happen after the previous sentence. And so when we start to think of AI as a series of predictions, then how we treat AI, how we train AI, what we do with AI starts to come into better focus.
So, if I could wave a magic wand and fix one misconception, it's that AI is any one single thing, and that it is something that can just be installed or double-clicked or brought into my company like a box and plugged into the wall. That AI is somehow going to just do these things, and it's not a uniform tool like a piece of software. It is, in fact, a math engine that needs to be planned for.
Great. So in one of our posts recently, we called AI a wild problem, something we can't solve with data alone. How does that affect the way you approach AI projects with clients, man?
I think so. Like, I have this distinct memory of kind of 10 years ago sitting in a room and having a client say, I need an app. And Steve and I looked at each other and said, what do you want this app to do? I don't know, but my competitors have an app. I need an app. And now, fast forward 10 years, and we kind of hear the same language. I need some AI. You know what could solve this problem? AI. AI could solve this problem. And again, as if it's a thing that I could just double click and install somewhere. And it is something that needs to be considered and thought through and planned for. It is not a uniform tool that just plugs into my network and does my thinking for me.
Steve, one of the clients we worked with recently said he wished he could have you explain to his stakeholders that the AI part of the solution he's building is incredibly non-trivial. How do you help clients understand the gap between AI hype and reality?
You know, riffing on what Matt just said, everybody feels like they're missing out. Everybody feels like they're behind the curve, and that this AI moment or opportunity is going to pass them by. And a lot of the big frontier players in AI, I think, are encouraging that sentiment. They are trying to pivot the conversation to their focus on being the solution and your need to buy it from them, to get on their team, spend money in their direction. In reality, AI, in its very many guises, is a tool. And so the real thing we need to do is we need to understand the opportunities, understand the story, and look at the tools that are available to us right now and begin the conversation about what can we do with those tools. The hype is that AI is fast, it's easy, it's smart, it's here. You just need to double click and start using it. And AI is pretty impressive at first glance at a lot of things. The reality is that if we're going to implement AI in a meaningful way for our customers, AI that empowers them uniquely, that respects their intellectual property, and that continues to learn, that is a much more difficult proposition. And that's a process of years.
You've also mentioned how FileMaker is actually great for building AI prototypes. Why is that, and why is it important?
The reason it's important is if you're going to do anything significant with AI within the context of a business or an organization that has a unique value proposition, has intellectual property, we need to be thinking about AI locally. And FileMaker gives us the tools to do that at a relatively small scale. We can get into it quickly. Secondarily, we need to be thinking of AI as it applies to our data, as it learns from our data, and as it enables our data. And FileMaker fundamentally is a database. And so we can start with structured data, and then we can employ all of the amazing tools that AI brings, and we can start to build bigger things very rapidly.
So you were asking about how FileMaker specifically is great for building AI prototypes, and I think what strikes me about that question is the component everybody forgets about AI, and that is, in order for it to be useful, it has to interact with data that you care about. And so when you walk into the average office, AI probably represents something on a browser window, and their data is over there. It's in a server, it's in a spreadsheet, it's in like 9 different people's minds, that kind of thing. So it doesn't really, right now anyway, there's no super duper easy way to get all that data into something AI-ish and give me results. Whereas, in a system where we've built, where we have a trove of information stuffed into their FileMaker system, we have years of sales data or whatever, making a call, being able to get an AI engine to interact with that data is just so much more easier. They are kind of all of a sudden ahead of some of their counterparts and competitors in terms of how do I get my data interacting with a large language model and with an AI engine.
Great. Steve, how does the studio model help us approach AI projects differently than other firms might?
Something that's central to the studio model and the way Harmonic practices the studio model is we need to learn the story. We don't know the story. And in the case of AI, we don't believe that AI is a feature that is to be tacked on. Instead, it's a tool that we can use to help tell the story. And so the studio model helps us work on the things that we always work on. What is the story that we want to tell, and how do we use our tools to tell that? AI is a piece of that puzzle. Yep.
Matt, why don't we lead with AI capabilities in discovery conversations?
Let's just take AI out of this for a second. We don't lead with you need a database. We don't lead with you need a website. We don't lead with you need an app. And we certainly don't lead with you need an AI. All for the same reason. We're in discovery. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What are we trying to accomplish here? And quite frankly, AI might not be a good solution. Databases may not be a good solution, although we're kind of biased and we think that they frequently do. But we need to assess what we're trying to accomplish. And throwing AI at it is, it is a buzzword and it gets a lot of people's attentions. And some people get excited to hear it, but that puts us in a bad position to, now we're solving towards this goal of getting AI involved instead of, in fact, actually trying to get this problem out of their way and allow them to do their job and allow them to run their business better.
Steve, when a client says we need AI, what's usually the real problem they're trying to solve?
They don't know what problem they're trying to solve. They just know that they need AI.
So what's the difference between the AI solutions that impress and the AI that actually helps?
So we've just finished a project, or we've finished phase 1 of a project for a longstanding customer. And we're leveraging AI, specifically computer vision. to help process paper at a pace that was previously unimaginable. We're taking away the work of clerks having to type in dates and numbers and text, and we're having computer vision do that work for us. And if you know what you're looking at, it's an impressive thing to watch. But more importantly, it allows us to treat that human knowledge worker as the expert that they are and empower them to look for the real problems and actually move both faster and more deliberately. And so I think that's AI that actually helps.
On a different take on that, just thinking back 120 years and asking, what's exciting about what Henry Ford brought to the table, and of course that car, right? That just the horseless carriage. But what he brought to the table was actually the assembly line, the mechanism that was then used ever afterwards. And so if we're talking about an AI solution and we're talking about the buzzwords and we're mentioning ChatGPT or Claude or Anthropic or whatever, that generates excitement. What doesn't generate a whole lot of excitement, but I think is where all the potential is in a customer and in a client where their data is proprietary or has PHI or personal financial information or things that can't be out on the internet. A local large language model and what that brings to the table, while not as sexy and as fun to talk about as the latest model that came out and hit the scenes, has huge potential for not only just our clients, but I think a lot of people, I would say the silent majority, who kind of look on with a little bit of disappointment that, it'd be so nice to be able to use that, but we're never going to be able to put our data out there. And they shouldn't put their data out there. They should be looking towards, the assembly line. They should be looking towards the real engine underneath all of this, which is the local large language model.
Steve, some of our clients are more worried than excited about AI. So how do we bring a balanced, clear-eyed approach to those conversations?
Yeah, the question becomes, what's the real concern and what's the real opportunity? One client that comes to mind, her concern is that AI is just the latest fad. It's just the latest buzzword. And she has, over a long career, learned to distrust technology fads. And so the pivot in the conversation with that client was when we were able to articulate how we might start to leverage AI to help empower and inform her users in a personal way that respected and maintained their intellectual property, but where we were able to fine-tune and enhance that AI with that intellectual property and enable her users to do things at a speed and sometimes with knowledge that they previously were not able to accommodate.
She's a great example of a worried customer, and maybe you can speak on this a little bit, Matt. But so when you talk to them about it, how did you kind of dissuade those concerns? How do you bring kind of this clear-eyed approach to that kind of a conversation?
I think there's two prongs to that. One is like reintroducing in people that this is not a brand new thing. I mean, we talk about it and the new model is the new thing and it can now do this is the new thing. But, machine learning has been around for a while. And this is just an evolution of that, the large foundation models that are available publicly. I think bringing it a little bit back home and breaking it into its pieces and saying what you need is a math engine that can model your data in a way that allows you to get tasks done faster and allows you to work harder. Almost everyone is on board for that. And that's almost another way of saying maybe we could leverage AI. And maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice by just throwing the AI word out in the middle of every conversation and actually focusing on the solution and focusing on what the tool actually does instead of using the buzzword. Maybe gets them over the hill, gets them over the hump a little bit.
What's possible now with AI that wasn't possible, say, 18 months ago, specifically for the kinds of problems Harmonic solves?
AI has enough traction, enough exposure in the various communities at this point that we can start to look at the ability to fine-tune a model, that we can start to look at the ability to create knowledge repositories in the form of RAG servers, and that we can start to look at integrating those tool sets into our software, into our database engines, into our application engines. And so for me, what's different now than 18 months ago is that I can now treat those things as tools, and I can run them safely, locally, and privately. And so I now have an ability to help my customer tell their story in a better way with AI.
I think just looking back over the last 24 months, let's just call it 2 years, what I am excited about just in my office about what we were able to do 2 years ago versus now is it allows a subject matter expert, someone who has a lot of entrenched industry knowledge, whether we're talking about a programmer or whether we're talking about a company that makes a bunch of widgets, or whether we're talking about someone that builds missile parts, right? Any of these topics, it allows them to work harder and faster and get data that they can use into their hands just much more readily. It is an interesting tool when used in the proper way, when given the proper application, allows somebody with the ability to differentiate between just data and data that's actually useful and that applies to my industry. It just allows them to get a lot done. The access to data is just so much more increased than it was. It's not like the data wasn't out there before. Our ability to go get it and funnel it and get it into our hands faster it's incredible.
Steve, what's your biggest concern about how organizations, our clients, are approaching AI adoption?
My biggest concern is that most people think of AI in two ways right now. One is it's a chatbot. The other one is it's going to write my code. As a chatbot, if we think about what a chatbot is, a text-based conversation is a very low bandwidth interaction. It takes a lot of effort to tell the AI assistant what you need in order to get from that AI assistant a helpful result. AI that is fully integrated into your data, into your business, into your world, and AI that you can interact with on multiple fronts, that is a really compelling notion, but that's a much more complicated thing to accomplish.
Let's do a soundbite. Steve, what's your biggest concern about how organizations are approaching AI adoption?
Thinking that a chatbot is the end game.
I would be a little bit of a contrarian and say, one of my biggest concerns is an organization that thinks we're just going to ignore this. This is a fad. I think that they do that at their peril, not because I feel like we should stuff AI into every corner, but because I think there are appropriate and useful and tactical ways to take advantage of it if we could just get over our fears and our concerns.
Steve, when you think about AI 5 years from now, what excites you more? What the technology can do or how people will use it?
Unequivocally the latter. What I'm really excited about and what we're pouring our energy into right now is the ability to enable our technology and our tools to do things that we didn't have to explicitly program. That is very exciting.
So, Matt, what's a question about AI our clients should be asking, but they're not?
I think that, like a lot of really neat tools, we look down the road and imagine big things about what we could accomplish with that. And I feel like it's my job in the middle of that conversation to pause and say, so how do we get there? And specifically for Harmonic, the question is, how do we get your data there? Because data, how it's structured, how we get that data to an engine like an LLM or an AI engine, and what we get back from it, there's planning, there's thought behind that, there's efficient ways to do that, there's bad ways to do that. Getting your data ready and prepped to actually be a lever and accomplish work for you. I'm excited about the possibilities when I'm talking to a client about what we can do and what we can accomplish. And I'm cautious. I want to get them in that space of thinking about what do I need to do to my data so I can leverage it and get the most out of it.
When I hear the question, or when I think about what clients should ask that they're not asking about AI, it's how will AI make me work harder? And we think about AI as something that should make things easier. We want AI to help us work smarter, not harder. But I think in a lot of instances, improperly applied AI is going to make us work harder. And so I think we need to also be asking, how will AI make me work harder?
Are we a database company or a data company? So, which is it?
We don't tend to think about database solutions like, hey, is this a MySQL thing? Or is this a FileMaker thing? Or is this an Oracle thing? Like, databases are a tool. Data is the information. And so we are very attuned to where is your information coming from? Where are you storing your information? How do you retrieve your information and for what purpose? And how can we make all of that work better? And so a database is almost always part of that solution. But we are very much about the data. Getting that data out of the hands of the spreadsheet brokers and the subject matter experts into the hands of the people who are going to actually work it and make it profitable for them. That's I'm always excited about that.
So we're a data company
Absolutely.
that likes to use databases.
That is right.